Art. I've heard it said that you can't throw a rock in this province without hitting an artist. Please don't throw rocks at artists. Newfoundland and Labrador is one of the highest concentrations of artists in Canada, and with that comes one of the highest demands for public funding. Wait, did you say public funding? Our government is using taxpayer money to fund the arts? I tried to grow a mustache to help distinguish characters, but after 4 days, this is all that bothered to show up to the party. Presently, the Government of Canada and the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador both have agencies in place that provide financial assistance to artists. The City of St. John's also allocates a portion of their budget towards arts grants. So yes, taxpayer money is being used to fund the arts. Are you kidding me? We need that money for better snow clearing in St. John's. And what about the state of the roads in this province? We can't afford to fund artists right now. Actually, I would argue that we can't afford not to fund the arts right now. Care for a healthy debate? Because I have some questions. I'll do my best to provide some answers. Ready? Go. Why can't artists just depend on the free market? That way, individuals could support what they like with their own money. Taxpayer dollars should be reserved for necessities. I would argue that art is a necessity, but we'll come back to that. First of all, the reality is that without public funding, many artists wouldn't even be able to get into the market because they wouldn't have a product to sell. This is the money that helps book studio time to record a debut album. It pays for the materials that go into a painter's first gallery show. And even emerging filmmakers need a budget. This funding makes it possible for artists to participate in a market they otherwise would have been shut out of. What about established artists? People who've been at this for years. If they're still coming to the government with their hand out, shouldn't it be time for them to move on to something else? No. Most artists aren't overnight successes, and just because they aren't doesn't mean we should stop supporting them. And artists don't just apply for funding to be artists. They apply because they need money to help with a specific project. And if the board reviewing their application doesn't see the merit or potential in said project, it won't get funded. You have to explain the value of your art. No one is asking for a handout. Well, tell them to get a second job and use their own money to fund these projects. Many do. Arts grants in this province are given out once or twice a year, and the average grant is only a few $1,000s. And I mean a few, like 2 or 3. And that isn't enough to live off, so most artists do have second or third jobs. Someone once said the following: gaining this funding puts us in a position to get established quickly in this market and build a strong brand based on our high-quality products. Yeah? What quinoa-eating hippie said that? NDP leader Earl McCurdy. Hippie. But he said it in 2013 when he was the president of the Fish, Food and Allied Workers, and he was talking about the funding the government had just announced to help stimulate the fishery. And that's exactly my point. When the government funds the arts, it is helping to stimulate an industry. Artists aren't applying for money to sit around and do nothing. They are trying to go to work. And what's good for working artists is good for all of us. How so? Well, if you're working, you aren't applying for unemployment benefits, which saves taxpayers money. How about making us some money? Artists do generate money for this province. A lot, actually. Look at tourism. Every year, people flock to Newfoundland and Labrador, and they don't just show up, climb Gross Mourn, and leave. They're taking in theater, they're buying paintings from our galleries, they're taking in music festivals. And when people go to these festivals, they eat in our restaurants, they visit our museums, and they go on our boat tours. Think of it like this. When you throw a rock in the water, you create ripples. And if you throw a bunch of rocks in the water, the ripples overlap. And that's the way our province works. We may work in different fields, but our industries are all connected. What happens to one touches the rest. And not surprisingly, the industries that generate the biggest and most profitable effects are the ones that get the biggest investments. And guess which industry gets one of the smallest investments? So maybe, just maybe, if we threw in a bigger rock for the arts, we might see some bigger ripples. I think I'd still rather throw my rocks at the artists.